Hi, everyone. Charles from the future here. Quick content warning for this episode. If you've seen the episode of Andor, you can probably guess what it's about. In our section 3, we are going to talk about the Dedra and Syril scene that's in this episode. So, content warning for domestic violence against an intimate partner. All of the timestamps for these sections are in the episode descriptions, so you can skip through that if that is not something you are in the headspace to. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers. And did you know that Star Wars is a good movie?
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
It's this movie that came out in 1977. Kind of a weird movie.
It's like an indie film or something?
Yeah, it's like it was produced by 20th Century Fox.
Oh.
But it was kind of low key, kind of flew under the radar. They kind of had some weird prosthetics going on.
Yeah.
Sets are a little janky. The effects are pretty impressive for 1977, but I don't think anybody saw this movie.
You know what 70s movies have a lot of that I don't like? Puppetry. Is there like puppetry in it?
There's not any puppetry, but I was Googling online, and apparently they got some guy named Jim Henson to do puppetry for the sequel, so
I guess heard of him, I think.
I'll get around to watching the sequel eventually. I guess they made two more of these movies, but
what's your point here?
My point is that Charles fucked up.
Okay, well, how did he?
That's what we're actually building to. Just coincidentally, I was upset about something at my day job, so I came home 2 days ago and watched
A New Hope.
You
as your palate cleanser.
That's my palate cleanser. I sat down. I was like, fuck this, fuck everything, fuck everyone. A New Hope is 2 hours and 5 minutes long. I'm going to watch it. So in the last episode, I believe it was the last episode, I made a comment something like, I brought up the disbandment of the Imperial Senate because of the death. And then I implied that the reason that the Senate gets disbanded is after Alderaan gets destroyed. I am misremembering scenes from the movie and the orders they are in. Because the Imperial Senate gets disbanded after Scare.
Oh.
Not after Alderaan gets destroyed. Because Tarkin announcing that the Senate has been disbanded is the first time we ever see Tarkin on screen.
Oh, like when he's okay, interesting. I didn't know
when he walks into the conference room, which happens before Alderaan.
Right.
And I am mixing that up with the several other scenes that the briefing room, the meeting room, is doubling as Tarkin's office. Because he keeps sitting there alone doing random stuff and having conversations with Vader.
Okay.
So that's where that was building up to.
So you're getting old is what you're saying.
I'm getting old, and also I think every person who makes Star Wars content would be a happier person if they occasionally went back and watched the movie.
You know, I was just thinking about that too, because I don't see it on purpose, but there is a certain subreddit that pops up on my feed sometimes that's really annoying, and they make a lot of jokes about the sequels and stuff like that, and that are not funny, and or they'll post about a certain Star Wars creator who shits on Star Wars all the time, and I see all that stuff and I'm like, when was the last time you guys actually watched Star Wars and actually enjoyed it? You obviously all hate it, so why are you still talking about it? It's just so annoying.
Try watching the parts of it you like and not hyper fixating on the parts that you don't.
That part, everybody has free will.
It's not that hard.
There's literally a bunch of them. You can watch whichever ones you want. It's so stupid.
Legacy Expo, which is the expanded universe convention that I'm a part of, it's kicking up. We're just under 3 months before the event, and it's really stressful.
Yeah.
And the way that I deal with the stress of Legacy Expo is by listening to the EU books at work.
See, there you go.
Because I'll come in, I'll have a situation that I'll have to deal with the expo and be like, God damn it, why do I like Star Wars? Why do I like any of this? I hate everything. Fuck it all. And then I'll go listen to one of the books. I'll go listen to Rogue Planet, and I'll be like, oh damn, this whips actually. I fucking love this. This shit is so good. I'm listening to Scoundrels right now, and Winter's just shown up. You have no idea who the fuck that is.
No.
But the 3 people in our audience who have read an EU novel will
Right.
know who Winter is. Winter has just shown up chronologically for the first time in the novels. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, she's here. I love this shit, actually.
I love that.
So before we dive in to the episode, Bradley, there's something we need to talk about. This is a major milestone for us.
What's the major milestone?
There is a possibility that instead of listening to my voice, you could be watching my face as I say these words.
Oh, yes.
You were the one that did a lot of the back end work to set it up. Do you want to be the one to formally announce on the podcast why you could be looking at my face?
Well, if you ever feel so inclined to watch our podcast instead of listen to our podcast, you can mosey your little butt all the way over to Patreon because we just launched a Patreon.
We launched our Patreon finally.
Yes, we did. And I'm still in the process of setting it up. It is active, so feel free to go on there and subscribe to us. You can join for free and listen to all of our episodes on there, or you can pay a tiny little fee and you can get our visual episodes, which I have started posting on there as well. So they backdate to Skeleton Crews when we started actually saving them.
So all of
Yeah.
for context listeners, that means you can get basically all of our Skeleton Crew episodes and you can get the Andor episodes and you can get everything between those two. But that's not all, Bradley. In addition, what else does your $3 a month get you? Because they're not just video versions. What else are they?
So these episodes that are visual are also extended episodes. There is two kind of bonuses you get with extended episodes. The one bonus is that, if Charles has a really annoying side story about Dragon Age or some dumb anime that he likes, there's only one, and he talks about it for about 5 or 10 minutes. Guess what? You can hear that story because
The
it's in
bit
the
that Bradley
episode.
cut out.
It's all in there.
There is the occasional moment that has been removed, but 99% of the
Sure.
episodes are uncut, unedited. You can
Exactly.
watch all of our flubs. You can watch me go off on random tangents. But what's the other element of the extended?
So the other element that I actually like the most, so not, I mean, yes, the extended episodes are great and you get to listen to everything, and they're about 2 hours long. They're great. The bonus thing that you get in addition to that is our pre-show, or what we're calling our pre-show, I guess. Now, you don't get the real pre-show because that is way boring and you don't want that.
That's our production
That's our
meeting.
production meeting. That does not count.
That's our
Yeah,
hold on. We have to redo the whole schedule again because Bradley's work fucked him because
exactly.
something
Yeah,
on my
you
end
don't want
fucked
that.
me because Disney dropped an entire show with no warning onto Disney Plus, and now we have to redo the whole schedule, or it's a random fucking Tuesday, and they've
Mhm.
just decided to announce 22 episode show that premieres next month, and we have to redo everything. You don't
Exactly.
want to hear that
Yeah, you
part.
don't want to hear that. But what you might want to hear is when we talk about just about anything. So we realized that, we do tend, sometimes before we hit record, like sometimes we just talk for like 30 to 40 minutes sometimes for just like stupid stuff, like shows that we like or whatever, And we used to do this back when we did, I think it was back when we did, maybe it was Bad Batch or Mandalorian. I don't remember, but
It
we used to talk
actually, I
about,
can tell you
oh, you
because
can?
I was going to say it actually goes all the way back to when we started the show. Like,
Oh,
this
okay.
is a thing that you and I have been doing since we started the show because we used to warm up with WandaVision.
Right. We used to just
We would get
talk
on
about
the Zoom
WandaVision
call
forever.
and we would talk about WandaVision for 20 minutes, and then we would hit the button to record the episode. And
Right.
in our early days, because Bradley and I had talked so much like over the text medium, but we were still kind of finding our voices with each other, that helped us get into the rhythm. But the thing is, Bradley and I are actually friends who watch a lot of the same media.
Right.
And so we just kept doing that. And you can now listen to all of that on our Patreon for $3 a month. And with our guests, we do warm up with our guests. So if
That's
you
right.
want to listen to us talk to Lorelai about Magic the Gathering, then you can listen to those. You can go to Patreon, pay the $3 a month, go to that episode, and you'll see the entire conversation about brunch.
There you
Or
go.
you want to listen to me talk to Alex from Star Wars Explained about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And I'll just sit
Then
there in silence and just
you and
nod and
Molly were both
smile.
just sitting there like, I don't know what these two are on about.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, if you want to listen to the extended cuts of those, that is on there. So yeah, $3 a month. It is. Where is it, Bradley?
For everyone who wants to know, go to patreon.com/Gold Squadron Gaze.
Pay us $3 a month for extended episodes and video versions, and there will be more goodies coming in the next couple of months as we roll out the monetization of this podcast.
Right. And also once I
After
start
three
figuring out
fucking
how to use
years.
Patreon better, like I feel like I'm just now learning how to use it. So
Mm.
once I kind of get more of the flow of how to upload things and do stuff, because I am still trying to figure it out and also migrate everything over, onto Patreon, which is really hard to do. So
Look,
it,
after
yeah,
you and I both do a lot of work for the show. After 3 fucking years, it was time. It was time to monetize this
right.
podcast,
Yeah.
or at
So
least let it pay for itself. Because I'll be,
right.
I'll be
That would be nice.
amazed. I'll be amazed if anyone decides they want to pay $3 a month to listen to me talk more. Everyone who
Yeah.
knows me in real life will be shocked. Prove me wrong by going to patreon.com/Gold Squadron Gaze and paying $3 a month to hear me talk more.
Right. And honestly, even if you don't, please join for free anyway, because we want to get the followers on there just so that we can start actually building it. So, if you're
Yes,
not
if you
quite comfortable yet, like that's okay. Maybe you'll just start listening to it and then you'll be like, oh, you know what? I can give up the $3.
they're
It's fine.
so cool and good. We could give
That's
them
right.
the $3 a month. That was a really bright, happy note. A series of bright, happy notes. I watched the original Star Wars movie, which was
Uh-huh.
awesome. We have monetized, so you can go to patreon.com/Gold Squadron Gaze to so that's finally off the ground. The video content that I'm really proud of is finally out there. So we're going into a really happy episode this week, right, Bradley?
This is probably like in terms of like every single bit of Star Wars media that exists, I would say this is probably the happiest go lucky episode that is just for kids. That everyone under the age of 10 would absolutely fucking love. This is amazing. No. Please don't let your kids watch this episode.
Please don't.
Please, please, please. It is not for kids. Definitely this. I mean, I don't even know why. Honestly, they should have had maybe a violence warning at the beginning of not I don't it's not for me. Like I don't need it, but I mean it is on Disney Plus. And if
This
you
is
don't
one of
have
those intense violence moments that they
yeah,
would need.
I think like it's weird that it doesn't have a little warning at the beginning because it is on Disney Plus, and if you don't have the parental control set up on your Disney Plus, then technically anybody can watch this. Like it is not like, it's Star Wars, and so I think some people would let their kids just like, okay, you're watching Star Wars, whatever,
Depends
la
on
di
the
da.
kid. Depends on the kid.
Right.
If I'd let a kid watch
But
maybe an
like,
older like a
yeah,
teenager,
I
I
would say
think
like
maybe
teen and up for sure
it
can
would
watch this,
it would
but
depend on me as a parent if
right,
I
right,
was
right.
gonna let. I would not let like my young child watch this, but then also like Gen Xers all watched movies that they were definitely not supposed to as
That's
kids,
true.
and they've pretty much turned out fine. So like maybe who knows?
Yeah.
I
I
do
mean,
think
yeah.
this is one of the hardest episodes to watch. Like this was the one you were actively texting me during, which never fucking happens.
Yeah, I know. And
We text after both of us have seen the episode. This one he was
right.
actually texting me like, I am so stressed out.
It's happening during the episode.
This is crazy. What are we talking about this week?
Today we're talking about Andor Season 2, Episode 8, Who Are You? Imperial Manipulation, Ghorman Frustration, Cassian and Syril Center Stage as Palmo erupts. Charles, what's one thing about this episode you liked and one thing you did not?
One thing I liked about this episode was everything. And one thing I didn't like about this episode was, I mean, I don't know. I watched it again, right?
Yeah,
To take
yeah.
my notes for
Sure.
this episode. I watched it for what was the third time.
Oh, yeah.
I watched it the first time by myself. I watched it the second time with my boyfriend. And I watched it the third time to take these notes. And I was on the edge of my seat with my hands dug into the leather of my chair watching this episode. I had to pry it off so I could take my notes. That's how good this episode is. I had literally seen it 3 times. And on the third time, I was still like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's a culmination of 6 episodes worth of build up. It's The tension is off the charts. Like the direction's incredible, the writing's incredible, the acting's incredible. Like even next week, I was able to find something that I disliked about the episode. This one, while it wasn't my favorite episode, that was next week. I think this one might actually be like to me structurally a perfect episode of television. Like I cannot stress enough. I was actively trying to find something I disliked and I couldn't. I couldn't do it. It's horrifying. It's gripping. It's incredible. I'm sure there will be things as we go through the episode that I will have minor things, but overall, structurally, no. This is this is peak TV right here. This is like I don't want to compare it to too much to the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones, but it's about up there with the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones. And the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones really is that good. Like this is just a whole episode of that. Bradley, what about you? One thing you liked and one thing you did not.
So I genuinely, yeah, I can't think of anything I didn't like. And it's again, I'm with you. It's not my favorite episode of the season or the show in general, but it's definitely like a moment. It really is. It's just like a good moment of television. I liked it a lot. The thing I really liked about the episode though was the tension. I thought if like you were teaching a class in television writing and you wanted to show people like, hey, how do you build tension in your episode? This entire episode, from beginning to the climax, is literally like it's just tension the whole time. And it doesn't even break until like I think it's the sniper is when the tension actually breaks and the violence erupts. That's when like the it just builds up to that moment, and then you're just like you can finally breathe once the action actually starts. Like it's crazy because you keep going through the episode and you're like, when is this gonna happen? When is it gonna happen? When is it gonna happen? And because there's little moments where you're like, oh, I think they're about to do it. Oh, I think they're about to do it. And then they never they edge you the whole entire time. And it's so good. And I think that, yeah, this is just like textbook for like tension building. It's really good. Section one. In his hotel room, Cassian assembles his blaster rifle while observing Imperial movements outside. Sergeant Bloy commands troops to reposition barricades around the plaza. Cassian updates Willman and the Ghorman on the Empire's movements. Meanwhile, Dedra speaks with Partagaz expressing concern over mining rig landings. He downplays her worries by insisting the Empire's focus on portraying Ghorman resistance as irrational and aggression. At Ghorman Front headquarters, the rebels prepare for a confrontation by assembling firearms. In Palmo Square, broadcasters spread the Imperial narrative. Syril is visited by an Imperial officer who orders all Imperial employees to report in, and the Ghorman citizens mobilize and march to a protest in the plaza, signaling that the public unrest is reaching a tipping point. Caro and his daughter Enza argue about the danger, and Caro believes the Empire is baiting them into a trap.
My very first note is good for Wellman.
Because he wakes up in bed.
He wakes up in bed with his girlfriend.
With his girlfriend. I'm like,
it's like, good for you.
I genuinely had the same thing. I was like, Willman, even in times of turmoil, in you know, people are struggling, and you know what? You just find a way to find love. I just love that for you.
Honestly, an inspiration.
An inspiration to us all.
An inspiration to us all. But we'll come back to Willman and his relationship with Drina in a moment because it was a little confusing to me in the context of the Mina Rao episodes until I just thought it was funny.
Right.
I was like, oh, haha, he's got a new girlfriend every arc. Sometimes the girlfriend is Rhydonium. But I think I got it after this episode. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Why I think that it's important to his character. I mentioned at the end of the last episode that Cassian, it was going to be hard for him to take the shot out the window because of the troopers standing up above there. I think he is going to try to take the shot. I just think he's going to take it further back in the room because we see him assembling his rifle in sniper configuration.
Right.
And then he starts breaking it down. So I do think he was going to take that shot from the hotel room right up until they started moving the barricades back.
Which I thought about it and I was like, after watching the episode, I was kind of like, why didn't he just stay in his hotel room and do that because she was on the balcony. So like it would have been easier for him to shoot her from his hotel room. I still think that. I mean, I don't see why. I could see like the cover of the crowd being a better
I
like
think it's the
ploy.
cover of the crowd was what was
Okay.
going to happen is
Yeah.
he went down there. I also think he didn't know what was going on. So he went down there to do reconnaissance and then
Reconnaissance.
kind of got caught in the crowd.
Yeah.
But I think that he's basically making this plan up as he goes along. And then things start
Which
going to hell and he's like, "Well, I got to shoot her.
at some point,
I
yeah,
just
you
got to
just got to
do
figure
it."
it out. Yeah.
Does Partagast make Dedra wait every single time he calls her?
100%.
100%. It is absolutely a power move at this point.
He's like, "Oh
He
no, I
just
got a
makes
bad
everybody
connection."
wait.
Like
Sorry, I'm late
Yeah, yeah.
again
I'm late to the
to the
Zoom.
meeting
My bad.
again that I scheduled.
Schedule. It's like he's her boss who schedules the meeting at like 6 o'clock her time, but he's on California time. So he's coming in at like right after his lunch and he's just like, I
You
got
wouldn't
15
know
minutes.
what
Like,
that's like, do you?
that's literally what I do every single day. We do a Zoom call.
Yep. Because we have a 3 hour time difference to make this podcast work. That's why you should pay us money at patreon.com/Gold Squadron Games for $3 a month. I'm practicing working it in.
There you go. You got to find good ways to work it in.
I gotta
Also,
find good ways to slide it in.
I did
I
call
gotta
the
practice.
membership co-pilot. So if you can like find a way to work that and be like our co-pilot tier.
Oh yes, we do. We do call it the co-pilot tier. But also like he tells her that like she seems animated because she's a little annoyed. And I'm like, fuck you, Partagaz.
He
You
is really
dick.
annoying in this episode because it's like I can understand it from like he's so far removed from the thing that he doesn't quite understand because he's in his fucking office with literally no one in there ever. There's never anybody in that fucking white office unless he calls a meeting. And he's like he's just quietly enjoying his day every single day on Coruscant. And she's there and then the tension is been rising for almost a year now where she is. And so I feel like he's just like he doesn't get it.
She's on Ghorman. She's right there in the middle of the plaza. No wonder she's a little animated.
Exactly.
There's talk of the Ghormans doing a general strike. This term comes up a lot. Do you recognize this term, Bradley? What a general strike is?
No.
A general strike, I'm going to quote from the Wikipedia entry on general strikes. Quote, a general strike is a strike action in which participants cease all economic activities, such as working, to strengthen the bargaining position of a trade union or achieve a common social or political goal. End quote. So the idea is just all the Gormans are going to stop going to work and stop buying things.
Oh,
And
okay,
that
okay.
craters the economy. You
Right.
don't need a lot of people to do this. I think it's 3.5% of the population is what you need. So I don't know how much of the planet they managed to get, but there is talk that the newscasters are talking about that the Gormans are going to do a general strike. And that's
Okay.
what they're referring to is since the everything has been escalating, the Gormans are just going to stop. They're
That
just going
makes
to
sense.
stop
Okay.
their whole economy. That's
Gotcha.
what they're talking about doing, and they obviously now have the Empire's manipulated them in this position. So now they're going to pull back the barricades and give them a chance to do a mass protest action.
Got
And the
it.
hope is that mass protest action will then allow them to get fired upon and all wiped out.
Sure.
It's fucking evil. Caro, so the scene with Caro and Inza is Caro gradually realizing Cassian was right about everything,
Yeah.
which is a heartbreaking moment for him as he's sitting here going, like, he doesn't say it, but you can tell him being like, oh no, we fucked this up.
Right. He's like, this is
Like,
not
we
right.
fucked this
Yeah.
up so hard
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because the Empire got us exactly where we wanted. They wanted us. And by the time that we got here, we didn't even realize this. We're pot committed now. We can't stop this. They could have stopped it when it was 10 people in a room. And now there's no stopping it. It's gotten out of control.
Yeah, because had they not organized themselves and they had not tried to come up with a solution, essentially, like I think, yeah, the general public might have been antsy and mad about it, but like no one was organized. So then you can't really blame anybody for it. Like it is what they did was essentially create a scapegoat for the
Right.
Empire.
Well, here's the thing about the Ghorman Front versus the Rebel Alliance is that the Rebel Alliance does not show itself until it's ready to go.
Right.
That the Rebel Alliance waits until the opportune moment to take military action against the Empire. And there's actually debate in Rogue One as to whether or not the Death Star is the opportune moment to do that, or if they've waited for too long. Like, that's what the debate in the big meeting is about, versus the Ghorman front, who Cassian showed up and said, whoa, 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 like, you guys need to slow your roll. And they were like, no, fuck you. We're going to do something, anything. We don't want to wait. We don't want to wait and see what's going on. And now, of course, it's too late. And Caro realizing that, like, this dude's acting. He needed more episodes. He needed more seasons to work with because he's so good. Like,
I
he's
genuinely think,
selling so much.
yeah, no, I think a full, this is why I wish it was 5 seasons, because I feel like, well, okay, I don't think 5 seasons it needed to necessarily be. I think we're just conflating each arc as its own season, but
Right.
I don't think the second arc and this arc would be two separate seasons. I would combine them as one big Gorman season. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, I think it needed three.
Yeah,
I think it needed 3 seasons. I think you could have done the first arc, you could have taken those concepts and stretched it out to about 6 episodes.
sure.
And I think you could have done the Gormans. Well, no, because you could have done part of the Gormans. Like, you wouldn't have got the Gorman massacre until season 3, but you would have gotten more time with the Gormans.
I think I would have set it up in the
Yeah.
second season. I don't think I would have like done it, but I would have set it up a little bit. Like I would sprinkle it in. And then I think you do the third season as the bam, here's the Gorman season. And then it's
I
it.
would have had the second season end with the establishment of the Yavin base.
Yeah,
That's what I would have done. I would have done the concepts from the first 2 arcs of Andor season 2 and structured in some way to end with the Yavin base. And then you have a whole season to play with the Gorman massacre and
sure.
Mon Mothma's escape and the build up to
Right.
Rogue One. But we're lucky we got what we got,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
based on what Tony Gilroy has said, where he was told like streaming is dead. Then we're lucky we got what we got. And it's thanks to Kathleen Kennedy that we were able to get the rest of the Andor story.
Section 2. Gormans, including Wilman, Drina, and Syril, join the march towards Palmo Plaza. Caro tries to stop the crowd, warning it's a trap, and confronts Syril. He dismisses the rumors about the mining activity, but Caro tells him to open his eyes. Captain Kaido continues to oversee operations and tells Dedra that she is the finger and he is the trigger, as they are about to initiate the operation. Meanwhile, Cassian checks out of the hotel and shares a farewell with Thela. Protesters flood the plaza. Enza reunites with the Ghorman rebels. Cassian reaches the upper level and spots Dedra watching from a balcony. Cassian tries to communicate with Wilman over comlink, though it's hard to hear over the crowd. Syril shows his credentials and is allowed through the Imperial barricade. Inside, he enters a room with other Imperial employees and 6 seated KX series security droids. Most look away, but one stares directly at him. As the protest intensifies in Palmo Square, Captain Kaido orders the exits sealed.
I do like that Cassian's blaster, a lot like Cassian himself, is adaptable to the situation.
Hmm.
I think it was. I don't know if this is the same blaster he uses in Rogue One. I don't think so.
Um, I don't know because I probably would know if I had a Black Series of him or not because I feel like that's just
I
something that
don't think it is. I think he has a separate blaster and sniper rifle.
I haven't watched Rogue One recently, so I don't really remember.
I have, and we'll talk about it in several episodes.
Well, that's not true. I did watch it on the way to Celebration, but I watched it in Japanese, so it was a little different for me.
You were practicing.
I was.
You were practicing for the Japan trip.
Exactly.
I absolutely fucking adore this scene of Cyril and Caro.
Hmm.
Because like at the start of the scene, you can see Cyril is still repeating like party line Empire
Exactly.
stuff, even though he told Dedra in the previous episode. He was like, what is going on? I'm being
Right.
told things that are different. And as this conversation goes on, as he finds out about the mining equipment, as he realizes more and more, I do think the more impactful thing, though, is that he has always viewed himself as someone who fights for justice. He thinks he's Captain America. He's like Superman. He thinks he's this great heroic figure who's fighting for justice and taking on the bad guys. And the way that Caro looks at him and speaks to him is like he's a monster. Even if he wasn't privy to this original plan, the fact that Caro is blaming it on him and treats him like he is a villain absolutely cracks the fuck out of Syril's mental image of himself. And I love that. I love that it's being confronted with atrocities that he was tricked into perpetrating and realizing that people will see him as a representative of the system as the monster. I love it. And I love Kyle Solar's face. One, because it's an attractive face, but two, because the subtle changes in him as he's listening to Caro talk is incredible.
Literally changing his mind as it's happening. Caro is convincing him in real time.
We'll see the exact moment in a minute, but yeah, Caro is like something is breaking inside this man.
Yeah.
Like something is changing in him. And we'll see the result of that as this episode goes on. I love that that Ghorman bellhop twink covered for Cassian.
Always.
Which he just did. And that's the thing about this show, right? The thing that this show hammers in over and over and over again is that the most important thing to rebellion isn't someone like Luke Skywalker or someone like Han Solo or Princess Leia. Certainly all these people are important, but this Ghorman twink bellhop is just doing his job. That's all he does. He's not run off to join the rebellion. He is fighting with the Ghorman front, but generally he's just here. He's at home. He's doing his job, but he's doing a tiny little thing. One tiny little act of defiance to gunk up the system. And it's that tiny little thing that has let Cassian slip through and be here. And because of that tiny action, Cassian is here. He is able to get K2SO because of his experience here and on Coruscant in the next episode. He's going to remain with the rebellion. And again, at the end of episode 9, we'll get there when we get there. So he is now in position to do the thing he will do in Rogue One, and that will lead to the Empire falling. Basically, a chain reaction as a result of one guy not checking him into a hotel.
Wait, the Empire falls at the end? Spoiler alert.
Spoilers for the original Star Wars trilogy. The Empire loses. Sorry to Andy from First Steps of Star Wars podcast if you're listening, but I don't think Andy is.
The Empire falls because of a hotel twink.
We also find out that Thela is the origin of rebellions are built on hope. Now, the line is most famously attributed to Jyn Erso, but since I recently rewatched Rogue One, I remember that Cassian says it to Jyn first.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yep, on Jeddah.
So
Thela said it to Cassian, Cassian said it to Jyn, Jyn said it to the entire Rebel Alliance.
Got it. Okay, so again, everything is because of Thela in this hotel.
Yes.
It all comes back to Thela at the very end of the day. The hotel twink does it again. The entire plot of Star Wars from this point forward happened because of one twink bellhop. Yep.
Big bisexual crush on Cassian Andor.
There you go.
The shot of Cassian and Syril passing by each other on the stairs is diabolically good.
Oof. And I love how it's just like, but they don't know. So you're just looking at it like they're literally breathing the same air and they don't even know.
They're so close to each other. They're so close to each other. In a nice little bit of actually making the arcs coherent and work together, the security guard that waves Syril in is the same security guard that he convinced to let him in episode 4.
Got it.
I thought that was a neat thing, but also with Syril entering the building, you can pinpoint the moment he figures out what happens, and it's when he hears the newscaster. Because remember back in episode 4, he was telling his mom, you watch too much Fox News.
Right.
And he hears the newscaster, and for the first time, I think he clocks how different the newscaster is. Because previously he was just saying it to his mom to get the Ghorman to think he was sympathetic to him.
Right.
Which I think I've been incorrectly calling them the Ghorman. They are the Ghor. Ghorman Front.
I do the same thing, I think.
Ghorman is the name of the planet. It's the Ghorman Front. The people are called the Ghor. He's just saying that so the Ghor will think that he's sympathetic. No, he's actually listening to it and going, what the fuck?
Yeah, what's happening?
What is happening here?
Yeah, he's like, what the fuck are they talking about?
What is happening? And this is, again, going back to my experience living in LA. I'm still fucking angry. It's been multiple weeks. I'm still pissed off at social media and at the mainstream media for grossly misrepresenting the situation in LA. And like experiencing that for myself, watching these horrified like broadcasts of the chaos in the streets. And then you live here and it's like, yeah, there's some protests, but they're all pretty much peaceful. Nothing's really happening. I could go to work. Nothing's really on fire around me.
Right.
It's like, it's not that crazy. Watching that disconnect is insane. Continuing on with the Syril thing, when Syril enters the room and the KX unit looks at him, there are bigger Rogue One nerds than me who have pointed out that apparently this is K2SO
Okay.
because the scratches match.
Ah, so I hear them. I hear what they're saying. However, unfortunately, I think that this KX unit and K2SO are technically different things, different
They are
people.
different characters.
They're different
Yes.
characters. So, however, as much as I love the Easter egg of that, this is K2SO's body, or original KX unit, droid programming, whatever you want to call it. That's fine, but that's not K2SO.
We
So,
will not be talking about the actor that plays K2SO because
yes,
technically this is not K2SO. Yeah.
exactly. Thank you.
This may be the designation K2SO, but this is not yet the character of K2SO.
I actually wonder where
This
does
is not an
K2SO
this is
come
not
from?
an Anakin Skywalker Darth Vader situation where there's a bit of a blurry line between
Right,
the
right,
two
right, right.
as to how much are they different characters and how much are they same character. Pre-memory wipe, this is a different character.
Right, it's totally separate thing, unit.
But apparently this is the
This is
KX
the
unit that
unit,
will
right?
eventually become
That makes
K2SO.
sense because he does. Yeah, I think he has the little scratch on his something. Which it's like, why would he still have the scratch? Anyway, we'll talk about it when we get to the last section. But I just like it's very interesting.
My final note for this section is that, like, they have made the stormtroopers so ominous in this in a way that stormtroopers haven't been ominous since A New Hope.
They're actually kind of, yeah, they're kind of scary.
Because here's the thing about stormtroopers. I will continue to bang this gong until the day I die. Stormtroopers are not infantry, are not core infantry. They are not the rank and file infantry of the Empire. They are just iconic. And so every time you need a like an Empire infantry unit, you're going to send the stormtroopers. Stormtroopers are a division above. They are not the mainline infantry units that they just deploy to every planet. So the TK troopers are not constantly everywhere.
Right, right, right.
Stormtroopers are better trained than most like infantry units. In fact, we literally see in Andor and we see in this episode the difference between an infantry trooper and a stormtrooper because the infantry are the people that they send out
Right.
to basically get killed. And the stormtroopers are the ones that are gunning people down. In A New Hope, the stormtroopers are very good shots. But Charles, I hear you saying, if you've never listened to any of our other episodes where I complain about this, how are the stormtroopers good shots? They're missing them constantly on the Death Star at point blank range. Gosh, it's almost like Vader and Tarkin have an entire scene where Vader goes, I have a cunning plan, and then it cuts away, and then the rest of the Death Star is them letting the rebels escape. Weird how that is. Anyway, we actually continue to see they're pretty precise in Empire and Jedi, but I do think by the time we got to Jedi, they were kind of becoming cannon fodder. Andor makes them really terrifying, particularly this episode when the faceless identical masks enter the square. That's fucking scary as hell.
Section 3. During the protest, the rebels begin distributing weapons. Lazine begins singing the Ghorman national anthem. Others join in, standing united in a powerful moment of resistance. Syril forces his way into Dedra's office and violently confronts her about the Empire's secret mining operation on Ghorman. Dedra admits to the Empire's agenda, and she reminds Syril of their ambitions. He responds with disillusionment and leaves her alone in the office.
So I didn't really get what the singing was about the first time around. I was like, oh, they're singing.
They're just
That's
singing,
a
yeah, yeah.
nonviolent resistance thing. I didn't process the Ghorman front conversation last episode.
Mm,
And in analyzing the show for this podcast, I've realized what's happening is that Lazine, who was at that meeting, who remember didn't come down one side or the other and saying, we will either do nonviolent protest or we will attack them.
right.
Because it could have gone either way. The Ghorman front could have incited the riot themselves. And I think that were it not for this moment with Lazine, that was the original plan.
Mm,
You can kind of tell in their faces that they were going to start the riot and storm the building.
right.
And Lazine, who gave that whole speech, but also who didn't pick a side, picks a version of this. He picks Caro's version. He picks nonviolent resistance. He starts singing, which clearly is not part of the plan, but the others go along with it. And I think that's really important. And it's really nice for his character that he makes this decision the guy who over like acted too quickly and got sent to killed is the guy that went like one of the two guys who did that is the guy who's like, I'm going to take the nonviolent option when it's presented to me so we don't act too hastily. And again, if we'd had more time, we could have fleshed this all out. But as it stands, once I realized that, I appreciated the moment a lot more.
I also appreciate how before, like the newscasters were like, "Oh, this is violent, insurrection kind of happening right now." Da, da, da. And then all of a sudden, these violent protesters are now singing in unison and having like a very nice moment. And you really can't change the perception of that. The perception is that, oh, they're just singing in protest. Like they're just there collectively as a group singing, it's not violent at all. They're just all, it's the national anthem or whatever.
Well,
It's,
they've
you
cut
know,
away to space Tucker Carlson at this point. They're
well,
not fucking showing this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Coffee and Toffee, or what were their names? Moffy and Toffee, or
Coffee and Moffy.
yeah, yeah. They've cut away to their segment on the current ball gowns this season on,
Yep.
you know,
I also
whatever.
like, well, it's also goes back to the use of music in the show, right? And
Mm,
diegetic music at that is something the show does really excellently. So, throughout this season as well, we saw the Mon Mothma dancing to the Niamos Club remix. We saw this scene with this music. We saw the opening bit where Clea is moving through radio channels and picking up music. Like at in and out as it's going in, like that's diegetic music. And there will be one more beautiful, beautiful instance of diegetic music in the show in what might be the only episode of Star Wars TV ever produced that's better than this one. But we'll get there when we get there. I'm telling you, the last 5 episodes of this show are bangers all the way down. Like, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I love the use of music in this show. So, do you remember how I said every arc, we have the scene that's going to be really hard to talk about?
yeah.
And in the first arc, it was a sexual assault scene.
Uh-huh.
And the second arc, it was the lesbian gets killed scene. Trigger warning for an act of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. Because, oh boy, this scene with this is the apex of the toxicity of this relationship.
Right.
The cracks have given way, and we were seeing what this relationship, which was bad and ended badly.
Yeah.
And like my thing is, I saw this scene, and I think Syril's a very interesting character.
Okay.
I think he's a very complex character. I think he's a great character study of this type of man. He was always going to do this eventually.
Mm,
In season 1, he stalked Dedra to her workplace.
this is
He's
true.
always been weird about his partner.
Right.
This is not a surprise from this guy. And like, I wish we'd had more episodes to build this descent more, but this was always going to be the end point of this incredibly toxic relationship, which is very fucked up because Dedra, I think, severely overestimated how controllable Syril actually was.
That's it right there. Yeah.
Because looking at this from an outside point of view, he was always the type of dude who was going to do this. And I think she really had convinced herself that she had him under control, which when push comes to shove, he is bigger than her and he is stronger than her. And when this inevitably happened, this was going to be the result.
It's unfortunate, but it's like I get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it I don't think it could have gone any other way because
Yeah, that that's
she was genuinely lying to him, and he always took her at face value, like whatever she's saying is truth. Like I would never lie to you, like kind of thing. And she already was making it toxic to begin with, but then I think he's cracking very quickly. And as this episode continues, he is gonna keep cracking as we go. And this is just the first breaking point.
And when we see the person underneath, that person is violent. That this is not the first time we're going to see this throughout this episode.
Right.
Well, this is the first time we're going to see this in this episode, but this will not be the last time that he has a breaking point.
Right.
And his reaction is violence. This man was always the perfect tool of the Imperial system because at his core, Syril was a violent man. We see it here in this moment with Dedra, where his reaction to realizing that she has lied to him for all this time is to lash out in violence towards her. And we will see it later in the episode when he sees Cassian, and his first reaction is to beat the shit out of him.
Right.
And like in this moment, Syril, I think this is the actual breaking point for Syril. This is the moment he completely, the cracks have cracked. The cracks have shattered. There is nothing left between him and the outside world. His horrible, horrible, messed up core in the outside world, because Syril was never that important.
Right.
Well, it's true.
No,
He
it is.
always wanted to see himself as important and doing important work. He was always just a tool. And I mean this in multiple uses
Right.
of the
Multiple
word
ways.
tool.
Yes.
He was always just a tool. He was always just a pawn of the real people who were in charge. It's like Qui-Gon says, there is always a bigger fish. He is the lowest of the low on the totem pole that contains Dedra, Partagaz, Krennic, Tarkin, the Emperor. And now at this point, he's not even got anybody beneath him on the totem pole. He's not got a Linus Moss. He's just been used the whole time. And that's, I think, part of what makes him completely snap, is that everyone he's ever trusted is just using him, which is people in this system. Like, I hate to say his mom was kind of right, but his mom was kind of right. Anyway, this scene is fucked up. This is not how I wanted Dedra to get just desserts. This is supremely uncomfortable, and we need to move on.
Section 4. As the Ghormans continue to sing, Dedra gives permission and Captain Kaido gives the order, and a sniper kills an Imperial soldier, prompting Sergeant Bloy to mistakenly blame the protesters and order his troops to open fire, igniting a massacre. The Ghorman front and allied civilians return fire. Stormtroopers and Imperial forces join the shootout, blocking the exits targeting fleeing civilians. Captain Kaido deploys the KX series droids, and one of them grabs Enza in the crowd and throws her across the plaza. She slams to the ground, snapping her neck.
Oh, this is the part where it all goes to hell. Okay.
Yeah,
So I will note that putting the infantry soldiers out does successfully incite the gore around.
Correct. They're
That
very
works.
angry. Right, exactly.
That doesn't work as well as they wanted it to work, which is why they start firing. But they do get the gore immediately around them to start beating the infantry troopers.
Right.
We also see that Dedra, immediately after getting attacked by a romantic partner, has to then go to work
Right.
and have to deal with this, because now he's running around God knows where. She's got this situation that's brewing. Partagaz is on the line. She's got to actually give the order to pull the trigger literally on this massacre. Watch Denise go in this scene. The way that she's established that Dedra has this, like, these anxiety tics, you can see her start to anxiety tick repeatedly throughout the scene where she's talking to Kaido, and have to turn away, pull it back, hide her hand. Like, I want my girl Genevieve O'Reilly to win the Emmy. I don't remember if they submitted Denise Go, if she was nominated for the Emmy for this.
You know, I actually never looked at it, so I'd have to see.
But I think this is an Emmy-worthy performance because it's so understated. It's so perfect.
I mean, she's definitely. I don't want to limit the show because there is only so many female actors, but I do feel like she's in my big three, like of this show. I think it's Bix, I think it's her, and then I think it's Mothma.
It's Genevieve, Denise, and Audria.
Yeah, I think this season they pulled it out as like the top.
Oh yeah, they chewed the hell out of all this scenery. Shout out to the ladies on this cast. All of y'all were fantastic. Elizabeth playing Clea, just where's her Emmy?
Wait, she just needs one just for existing. I mean,
you know what? I'm just gonna look up 2025 Best Supporting Actress or Best Actress Emmy nominees.
Well, wouldn't it be for 2026? Because
shut up.
Because that already happened. 2025 already happened.
They may be doing For Your Considerations campaign. I don't think that they've announced them, but I I think they've submitted Audrey and Genevieve definitely because I've been seeing stuff for Genevieve on social media.
We'll see.
Yeah, they haven't announced the nominees yet.
Oh, okay. But have they done the considerations or no?
They've submitted, but I
Oh,
I,
okay.
I
We just
can't
don't
look
know what
up
they
right
are.
now who they've submitted.
Got
I
it, got
do
it.
know Genevieve and Audria definitely were submitted
Okay.
for Emmys.
Okay.
And honestly, I think everyone in Andor should win.
Honestly, give it all the wins. I
Give it all
think
the wins.
as much as I don't think Disney needs any more awards, I think the show
I
unfortunately
think the
does
show
need the
deserves awards.
right.
And then yeah, they shoot their own guys to provoke Bloy to open fire.
Correct. Because he
Because
knew he would
Bloy,
freak
I
out.
think a
Yeah,
note, Bloy is not under orders to open fire.
correct.
They do not send Bloy out there with the specific intent of him opening fire, him knowingly doing that. They send out a guy who clearly has problems keeping his like emotions under control. They send that guy out with a bunch of recruits and expect that that guy's exactly doing what he's going to do, which is open fire on the protest.
Right. And then even the recruits, if you watch it, like they're so agitated in the state because the crowd is like throwing like trash at them or whatever, like and just kind of instigating them. And then they're like they have the batons, the electric batons or whatever, and they're like threatening to like stab people. Like they're like, you know what I mean? Like and so they're already agitated as is, and then you go and just shoot one of them in the back of the head, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this just escalated like 100%.
Well, because now the infantry doesn't know any different.
That's just a person in the crowd shooting them.
They think that somebody from the Ghorman front is opening fire.
100%.
Yeah, it's extremely fucked up. Really, my only note for the massacre itself when they just start firing is this is horrifying because how do you break this down?
I mean, yeah, I literally had to just be like, they start shooting at each other. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, yeah.
How do you break this down into the silence, the gunfire, the screaming, the quick cuts? Like, how do you talk about this?
Well, it's also really hard to film too. Just from a production standpoint, this is really hard to do. Anything that is controlled chaos, which is what this is on a production set, obviously, like all of this is very controlled. Everybody is acting, it's very hard to do. I think just from a production standpoint, it's like if you don't get this right, people can actually genuinely get hurt. And even if they're stunt people, you know what I mean? I'm sure a lot of these people are stunt people and they're not just regular background actors screaming and running around.
Yeah, the people that you see falling, the people
Right.
that you see getting trampled over, these people, like both the stunt people and the extras in these sequences, like the amount that you have to be choreographed
Exactly.
to make 100% sure that you're safe, like that's a skill on its own. And that's something that has to be taken into consideration because it is a safety issue.
Right.
Like it looks like it's so chaotic and panicky, but it has to be very, very tightly choreographed. Otherwise, yes, somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get trampled. There have
Right.
been tons of cases where this has happened. Somebody gets accidentally crushed during a crowd scene, or somebody gets, something broken because they fell over when they weren't
Right.
supposed to. Like you have to be very, very, very careful with it.
And I'll make another note that like if you watch the scene, there's not a lot of like so usually in like action movies or like in stunts and stuff like that, the shot is always people will fall or something happens where it's out of frame and then we don't see them falling onto the mattress or the thing,
Right.
This is not necessarily the case in this scene. A lot of these scenes, you see the people fall to the ground. It is not like you get the full range of motion of these people falling and things of that nature. And so I think a lot of this it's genuine stunt people genuinely falling and like hopefully what they're falling onto is not necessarily like I don't know how the set was built, so I can't like know for sure, but like maybe there are patches and things that it's an illusion that it looks like concrete and it's like just like whatever. But
I think it might be actual concrete. And the reason I think that is because falling is a skill you can learn. When you do any sort of martial arts, and I did martial arts when I was in college, not when you knew me, Bradley, prior to this. I did martial arts, and the very, very first thing they taught us was how to fall. That was the first thing that they ever taught. How do you fall safely? And that's one of the first things they'll teach you because it is so important to learn how to fall and hit the ground in a way that does not injure yourself, that you're able to get back up. And yeah, I think based on some of the shots, there's some shots where they may have mats, like
Right.
someone where they're getting shot and they're really falling. But then there's cases where, yeah, I think they're just falling onto the ground.
Yeah.
I think that they're just really good at this. But either way, it's an extremely impressive from a production standpoint because it's we get shots that linger on them for a couple of seconds,
That's what I'm saying.
which
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're dealing with chaos like this, a couple of seconds is a long time.
Also, shout out to the droids who performed in this scene. They're all really good stunt droids. I mean, they looked
Yes.
real. I thought they were really
So
throwing people around.
so this is a pretty good representation of what fighting a KX unit in Fallen Order is like.
Oh,
Because
interesting. Yeah.
I do feel like if you had only seen Rogue, actually, no, I can tell you for a fact. If you'd only ever seen Rogue One and you saw K2SO and he's beating up stormtroopers and like, haha, that's funny.
Right.
Because the other KX units don't do a whole lot in Rogue One.
No, they just kind of walk around.
Fallen
Yeah.
Order was probably the first time we had to fight a KX unit.
Oh, okay.
They are essentially elite enemies.
Oh,
Like they're not mini boss level, but they're like elite enemies. Like you see a KX unit, that's a problem in Fallen Order. And mind you, Cal is a Jedi.
right, 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 right.
So even a Jedi, he struggles against KX unit. These things are terrifying to fight in Fallen Order. Andor's the first time I've seen them very accurately represent what it's like to fight a KX unit, which is you fucking don't.
You run.
You run away and you hope it does not decide to come after you.
Yeah, because they are flinging people left and right in this scene. Like they're literally throwing them, punching them. It's like crazy. And then obviously rip to Enza because he literally throws her across the plaza. Like,
Yeah.
fuck.
Her fucking, you hear her bones crunch.
Yep.
You hear things snap inside of her.
Oof.
Like, that shit killed her immediately.
Yeah.
Like, she was dead by the time she rolled over.
Sad. Section 5. Syril is stunned, paralyzed by the unfolding violence around him. In the hotel, Thela hurls a grenade while Cassian aims at Dedra on the balcony. The bomb outside the hotel distracts him, missing the shot. Syril sees Cassian aiming at Dedra and, in a fit of rage, tackles him. They fight inside the cafe, and they are interrupted by a grenade and incoming Imperial gunfire. Cassian takes cover as Syril retrieves his rifle and corners him. Cassian asks Syril who he is, and Syril lowers the rifle, hesitating. Before Syril can act any further, Caro arrives and shoots him in the head, killing him. Wilman arrives and helps Cassian to his feet as they flee.
Yeah, Cyril's just fucking done.
He's broken.
My guy's just gone.
He is so fucked up at this point. He is like, what? Like, I don't think he's quite, I mean, I think he's registering on some level what's happening, but I think he just mentally is broken. He just really doesn't understand. He just
You
like,
get to a
yeah,
point when you're undergoing a traumatic situation, you get to a point, and it takes a lot to reach this point where your brain just shuts off.
yeah,
Where you're just done. You're not there
right.
anymore. Like you're just blanking. And that's what's happening to him. He's fucking gone. Like everything he knew, everything he believed in, everything was a lie. He never meant anything. He wasn't important. He wasn't heroic. He was aiding in monstrous acts. He destroyed his life for nothing. He destroyed his life for values that meant nothing. Nobody actually cared. Nobody's listening. Meanwhile, the Ghorman twink bellhop is fucking murdering a bunch of stormtroopers with his dying act, which is cool as hell. R.I.P. to Thela. You were a real one.
Yeah.
You did kill a lot of stormtroopers.
It was really sad too because like I think a little bit earlier there's a mini kind of thing where he helps like some people who are hiding in the hotel and he just kind of like tells them like come back,
Yeah,
you
he
know.
gets them out of the way.
Gets him out of the way, and then it kind of cuts a little bit later, and then he has the grenade and he throws it at the front of the hotel and he blows all the stormtroopers up, and I'm just like, it's sad, but it's like he started the whole entire revolution basically.
He
So, you
did.
know.
He did. Yep.
But
This one Ghorman twink. This is not the last time that a twink will accidentally incite a rebellion in this show.
oh, okay, great.
That will happen again. Then we get the fight between Cassian and
I'll say
Syril, which
we
is
have to break Cyril out of his daze, and he
well, he
notices,
sees
yeah.
Cassian, and
Yep.
remember, I said in the earlier section, Syril is a violent person. I'm sorry, Syril stands. I love him too. As a character, he is a violent man whose first gut reaction to any emotional gut punch is going to be to lash out in violence. And he sees Cassian, the guy who ruined his life, and proceeds to beat the fuck out of him in one of the most brutal hand-to-hand fights I've seen in a Star Wars ever. Because holy shit. There's like they are both bleeding, they are both grimy, they are both sweaty,
Oh, it's a perfect little hand-to-hand fight. I mean, and then
like
it's ugh.
he hits him with a fucking Cyril hits him with a fucking bottle, which I gotta say, I don't know why there's always a fucking bottle
There's always a
nearby
glass
during these
bottle
things. There's always
nearby
a
where you have
glass
to reach
bottle.
over.
Somebody can always whack him with it.
Yeah.
That always fucking happens.
It's part of the choreography.
It's it's like when you're choosing your spot for your brutal hand-to-hand combat, you look around and go, okay, where specifically is somewhere that has a bottle on the floor or a bottle on the table that I can use to break over somebody's head? Because that always fucking happens. I swear. Every piece of media I watch that happens. And then we get the title of the episode when Cassian looks at Syril and asks, "Who the fuck are you?"
It's almost too perfect because I have to say, like, just fast forward through the rest of the episode. Cassian has no idea what just happened. He's like, why did this
No,
guy
he has
fucking
no
attack
fucking
me?
idea.
No idea who he was. And he just has to move on. Like, he genuinely has to move on from this fight, like, immediately. It's so funny because Cassian was just like, what the fuck was that about? This guy was just like, okay, there's a riot. It's like the purge out here. I'm just gonna start killing random people because I feel like it. Like, he had no idea what happened. And that's so ridiculous because it literally translates like, Cyril's dead, RIP, but like it meant nothing to him, meant nothing to Cassian. That whole fight meant nothing to him.
Well, not even that whole fight, because I know they did an alternate version of this scene
Mm,
where Cassian does recognize. I'm glad this is the version we got. I'll say this now as something that will be relevant to episode 12. For the purposes of analysis, I really don't care what a writer said.
right.
I
It's
have to
whatever
take
you
the
see in the
text.
scene.
I don't care what a producer said. I don't care what a director said for the purpose of textual analysis. There is a certain point where there has to be death of the author. And part of that point is we have to take the text as it is when we are analyzing. Now, we can talk about whether or not, Cassian should have recognized him. He shouldn't have recognized him. We can talk about the alternate things all we want. But when we're looking at what is in the text, we have to take the text as it is. I love that they settled on Cassian does not know who Syril is because it feels the most authentic to me for both characters. For Cassian, Syril is just a dude. Like he's just another one of the long string of faceless mooks that Cassian has dealt with. He is every stormtrooper that you have killed in a Star Wars video game.
Right. You just forget about it
He
and
is
move on.
he is
Yeah.
every random tutorial encounter that you've ever played in a video game that stops mattering. For Syril, that was a life-defining moment when he encountered Cassian on Morlana 1. For 4 years, 4 years, Cyril's life has been ruined. At least Cyril thought his life had been ruined by this man.
Right.
He thought Cassian got him fired from Morlana 1 because he was the one that kicked that whole thing off. Because he got fired from Morlana 1, he has to go back to Coruscant. Because of that, he winds up in this situation that he's currently in gradually. Cyril feels like he's had to fight so hard against what Cassian has done to him because this is all Cassian's fault in his head. So when he sees Cassian and he's like, I have a chance to fucking kill the guy that did this to me, that put me in this position. And what I think is beautiful about the moment is that in the end, no, he fucking didn't. Cyril did all that to himself.
Right.
Cyril did not matter to Cassian at all. Every choice Cyril made after Morlana 1, every choice he made during Morlana 1, that was all Cyril. And for the first time ever in his life, Cyril is confronted directly with the fact that he has to reconcile that he is solely responsible for his own choices. And he starts to lower the gun.
He's like, wait, what?
And
You
he
don't remember
gets
me?
shot in the head and fucking dies.
It's not comical because it's not funny, but it is cosmically funny in the sense that he did all of this, right? And he blamed this one guy for all of his troubles. And then he hesitates for just a moment because he can't comprehend the fact that this guy has no idea who he is and does not remember him whatsoever. And then this other guy that he actually genuinely ruined the life of kills him and gets his revenge.
And that's why I said it's so important to watch those Caro Rylance and Syril scenes from the early Ghorman arc,
Yeah.
knowing we're building up to this moment. Because Caro, it's funny, Syril blames Cassian for so much that Cassian had nothing to do with. Caro blames Syril for stuff that Syril didn't even know what was going on. Remember, I talked early in the episode about Syril getting blamed for the Empire's crimes that he
Right.
unknowingly abetted. That's why he dies. He becomes who Syril genuinely becomes who Cassian was to him, and then gets fucking killed for it. In the same way he was about to kill Cassian. I fucking love this show. Like, I'm
It's
down on
great.
this season because I think it was hacked to the bone, but man, what's on screen is so fucking good.
When it has good moments, it has fucking good moments. I will say that.
Anyway, RIP to Cyril. No one will pay attention to you. You will be a footnote in history. You will be just one of the Imperial casualties on Ghorman. Future history books will not remember your name, or they will eternally tie you to this massacre. You will mean nothing, you will not be important, and you'll be remembered as a statistic. And eventually, someone will memorize your name only for the purposes of getting a good grade on the SAT. Rip, motherfucker. Anyway, now that that pasty bastard's dead, who I like him as a character. I think he's great.
Yeah.
I also am going to shit talk him in death because he
Fair.
sucks.
Section 6. As Ghorman survivors flee the plaza, Cassian urges Willman to leave with him, but Willman insists on finding Drina. They briefly argue as a KX series droid terrorizes the fleeing crowd. Blaster fire proves ineffective until Sam uses troop transport to ram and destroy the droid. After retrieving the broken droid, Willman decides to stay with the Ghorman front. Cassian agrees, and the two part ways. Drina makes an emotional emergency transmission declaring that the Ghorman massacre has begun and exposing the Empire's role. She reunites with Willman, and as he drives away, Cassian silently weeps as the full horror of the massacre sinks in. Alone in the safe room, Dedra silently mourns before forcing herself back under control. A broadcaster reports the slaughter as a heroic suppression of an uprising, declaring the fallen Imperials martyrs. On Coruscant, Edie watches the report.
So remember I mentioned earlier we were going to talk about like Willman's arc with relation to Drina?
Right.
So here's the thing. Willman's had to leave a girlfriend behind before.
Right.
And he never went back for her. He never had a chance to. Here, he has another girlfriend who is in a much more dangerous situation, and he does have a chance to go back for her, and he chooses to go back. And I think that is what hit me about Willman in this episode. Is like, oh, he's going back for his girlfriend this time because he couldn't go back for his girlfriend.
Right.
You want to talk about scary, though? This fucking crowd scene where they're trampling over each other to get away from the KX unit.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. We'll get to it when we get to the Rising Storm eventually, but there is some crowd stuff in that book that is also this level of terrifying. Like being trampled is horrifying.
Well, it's funny you say that it's horrifying because there is a bit in Tony Gilroy said in an interview that they had developed a script or something. Dan had written a whole entire episode or whatever about this essentially, where it was supposed to be some kind of horror movie episode.
Yeah, I'm about to get to that in a second.
Yeah, that's what he.
Yeah,
so
different
it's funny
kind of horror, but yeah. So yeah, actually, now is a good time as any to touch upon that. Also, Tony Gilroy gives a lot of interviews about this show. He doesn't give a fuck.
I literally have quotes from him on here.
Oh, you do?
Especially about K2SO.
Okay, do you want to read your quotes with regards to K2SO?
So I have a continuity note. Okay. Because apparently, and I have looked this up because I heard Star Wars Explained talk about it. And
okay. This fucking, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. So basically in the Marvel comics, there was a one shot that is called Rogue One, Cassian and K2SO Special. This recounts the time that Cassian and K2SO meet for the first time, right? And this came out after Rogue One. It was probably a part of a group of, comics to help promote the movie.
This was, right? This was tie-in material for Rogue One.
Right.
And it was part of a wave that came out, sort of a Journey to Rogue One kind of thing around Rogue One.
Sure.
Because they had like a Baze and Chirrut novel. They had an adult novel about Krennic and Galen. Like, they had Marvel one-shots. They incorporated the Rogue One elements in the main Star Wars comic. But yes, I have read this one-shot. It is not very good.
Right. So
It's
I
pretty bad.
like, and so, well, so what's interesting about that, right? So this exists, right? Before this episode was ever even conceptualized or written. And then Tony Gilroy said, I was annoyed to find out somebody had written an origin story for K2SO. And it's like, no, I'm not paying attention to that. So, twofold thing here. One, I think this is probably the first time that I've ever seen somebody making Star Wars actively say out loud that they're ignoring something that's already canon.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first time this has ever happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time someone's
This is the first
genuinely
time
been like,
somebody has genuinely said, like, yeah, no,
we
we're
did this
ignoring.
on purpose, right? Yeah. And that's really interesting because I'm like, whoa, that's really crazy. Now, to be fair, it is kind of a whatever comic. It's not that interesting, but
Yeah, you finish your points and
okay.
I'll kind of say my opinion on this because I've thought about this a decent amount.
Okay. So Star Wars Explained said in his YouTube video that he can view this as a duality of canon. Both things can be true because what we're seeing in Andor, is the actual events of what happened, how he gets K2SO's body and everything, right? Then the one shot comic is the official story that the rebellion tells people how they got this K2SO body from the Empire. And so like both can theoretically be true because it's like an unofficial like official thing, if that makes sense. Like this is the official story, but not
That's my
necessarily what happened.
headcanon.
Yeah,
I agree with Alex. That's my headcanon because that's the way that I can make it work. And
I agree.
I do think that when you're faced with a situation like this, the best thing as a media consumer is to just try to make it work as best you can in your head and move forward.
Right.
I'm fond of talking about legends, and one of my big points to legends and go, haha, wasn't that a little weird that that happened? Is there are two equally canonical versions of the Battle of Coruscant that kind of have the same plot, like the Genndy Tartakovsky series and Labyrinth of Evil kind of follow similar plot beat, but not really. And both of them are kind of considered on the same level of canon, at least in terms of the expanded universe. So we've had instances before where we've had the same event twice and we had to kind of make it work.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
My I'm conflicted on this.
Yeah.
I admit to being very conflicted on this one. I did not fucking like and continue to not fucking like when creators of visual media completely disregard any other work that anyone else has done because I think it props up this sort of the visual media is more important than any of the other stuff. So the other stuff, like, we don't really have to care about any of the work that those artists or those writers or any of that did. We're just going to go off and do our own thing. And I do understand that the visual media, in a lot of ways, with regards to the franchise, the visual media is actually more important.
Right.
But that also doesn't mean that those books and comics aren't important to people, to fans. I think when you're dealing with a situation where you have these creators who've become attached to these characters that they're working with, I think it's tricky because, like, I was annoyed when they made Tales of the Jedi and they just did the Ahsoka novel again, but worse in that show. And even that one, Dave Filoni was kind of working off the same outline, but I do understand Tony Gilroy saying, this is a character that I helped create. He didn't create the character, but this is a character I helped create. The origin story was done at a time when we didn't think we were going to get an origin story for him.
Right.
We're just going to kind of ignore that and do our own thing. I don't love the precedent that it set. And I kind of hope that as we move away from the like Skywalker saga stuff and everything always tying into the same characters and the same things, that we move away from having this be a problem.
Right.
Because I get that there's going to be bumps in the road. We're going to see another bump next episode to where something happened and they did a version of it. I like that Andor kind of allows for you to kind of fill in these gaps in the continuity or kind of make these work. So they are acknowledging that like there was stuff that came first and they try to work it in when they can. I appreciate their commitment to telling a good story. I don't think that they should make this a habit. And it's not because I think everything is on the same level of importance, but I do think that it's important to have that cohesion. But more importantly, I think it's important to have that understanding that other people have told stories in the same universe before. That just because it's not on screen doesn't mean it can be completely ignored. That's how we get a case like the original Clone War, not the Genndy Tartakovsky series, the first 5 seasons of the Clone War and what happened with that.
Right.
So I think it's a complicated, it's a complicated topic. I'm not happy about it, even though I didn't really like the K2SO and Cassian comic because I don't really love the precedent that it sets. Because, like, I would be concerned about the health of the franchise going forward if large parts of it started ignoring.
Right, because it wouldn't be very healthy if that
It wouldn't
happens.
be
Because
very healthy.
yeah,
You would wind
it
up
would
with a
make messy.
case. You would wind up with a case where, the TV shows are doing one thing and the books are doing another thing and the comics are doing another thing. And look, I love Legends. I really do. They probably should have told George Lucas that they were giving Luke Skywalker a kid prior to them making the decision to do that.
Yeah, I think they probably should have told
Is you
him a
wind up
lot
with
of
a
things.
situation like that. You wind up with a situation where the books have decided they are going to give Luke Skywalker a kid, and nobody tells George Lucas because they know he'll hate it.
Yeah.
And they wait until Star by Star is out, and then they tell George Lucas that they did it. Yes, that really happened.
Don't love that.
So I guess that's part of my concern here.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
like,
yeah.
is like it's I don't really think it's healthy for the franchise overall, but
Right. And I could also see a world too where like if they did try to adapt this comic in some kind of capacity, it wouldn't necessarily be this episode, but maybe then,
well,
the
they
next
wouldn't
one
because it wasn't a
or
very good comic.
no, but if they did, I feel like there might have also been an issue. You have to give a writing credit to the writer of the comic because you're taking their idea and like there's a whole legal thing there, I'm sure, with
Right.
copyright and things of that nature. And even if Disney owns technically all of it, it's tricky, right? So I don't know what the limitations are
It's
there. I don't even
touchy.
know.
Well, it's touchy because you want creatives to be able to tell good stories,
Sure, sure,
right?
sure.
At the end of the day, this is part of the trick of working in the Star Wars universe or any big franchise universe.
Right.
You want the creatives to be able to tell their stories, but you also have to be cognizant of everything sort of fitting together, at least kind of fitting together, so it can be somewhat coherent.
Right.
Because you really kind of want to keep your franchise all on the same path. And if you start like diverging too much, then you start, asking questions like why bother to read the comics at all or why bother to read the books at all. It's tricky.
It's
It's
tricky.
tricky.
Right.
My position on this is ever evolving. I don't like that they did this, but I also really like the episode. The solution to that is to stop telling the same fucking stories with the same fucking characters every 5 fucking minutes. Maybe get some new characters. That's why the High Republic is so good.
Until they start making those into TV shows, and then you're going to be like, well, fuck.
They already did. And we talked about the portrayal of Vernestra Rowe in The Acolyte and how it is seen as different. And I don't want to get too much into the drama TM on the podcast, but I have a sneaking suspicion that not everybody was happy with the choice to make Vernestra the way she was in The Acolyte that was involved in creating her. I have a sneaking suspicion based on some things that I've seen that not everybody was happy about that, but I have not seen the actual quote, so I cannot confirm that. But even that is like, what's the line between continuing the character in a different way and overwriting the previous characterization? It's all very messy. I have a quote from the StarWars.com trivia guide for week 3.
Okay.
Quote, in an earlier version of Andor Season 2, K2SO was introduced tearing through a ship in a sequence reminiscent of both Alien and Predator movie franchise. Instead, the final scripts incorporate Imperial KX units into the Ghorman massacre sequence, end quote. I do know there's another quote from someone, I think it was Tony Gilroy, that was talking about the original pitch was that K2SO was going to be on a ship that crashed on Yavin, and they were going to do a Predator-like thing where he's stalking people and killing.
You know what's funny? You say that. I feel like that would have made a better Maya Pay Brigade episode.
Oh, you're right.
That would have significantly improved that plot line and make the premiere arc of that with Cassian fucking off doing God knows what, by himself, make that 10 times better. If you introduce K2SO into those first 3 episodes or the first 2 episodes and have Cassian fighting off K2SO to help the Maya Pay Brigade or whatever, instead of some random ass monster for like 1 second in the, second episode. That would have been holy shit better episode. That would have made the first arc way better
The
for me
problem with
personally.
that is that if you introduce K2 too early, he can fix problems too early.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
You have to come up with a reason. Also, they're not going to have the reason. You could maybe see how I can maybe see how that could work.
There's way. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily put it first, but I could definitely see that being how you create Yavin. That's how you discover it and you make it a thing. There's so many things we could do, but we gotta move on because we're gonna be out here all night long. So
Yeah, we can't have you here entirely too late.
yeah,
I love that Drina ran to the radio that she's broadcasting out, and just the final few shots of where everybody ends up. Lazine realizes that everyone has died.
everyone.
Dylan dies in his arms. He realizes that everyone that he encouraged like to stand together has been fucking killed. Caro is alone, grieving in a room, like in an empty room by himself, just absolutely in the throes of his grief. That's the last time we ever see him. His world is dead. His people are dead. He lost. Cassian is crying, like in the thing, crying while he
Right as he
listens
drives off. Yeah.
to the broadcast, which is
Oof.
that hurts, that hits, that just is like being punched in the gut repeatedly. Dedra's having her full panic attack that we all knew was a panic attack from the trailer.
Yep.
Not her being force choked. She's just having a panic attack. And then finally ending with Edie Karn in her apartment being consoled by neighbors. Because clearly somebody realized what was going on and came to check on her.
Right.
Crying because guess what? She's alone again. Holy shit, this episode's so good.
And it ends just so sad. Like it's just like, oh,
It's a
like and
gut punch.
so when we were watching this, like as it was, because we watched all three episodes in order, right? It's like the first one it was good. It just gave you all the information. The second one, this one builds like crazy builds, right? And then it just ends, and you're just like, oh fuck. And then now you have to watch a whole nother fucking episode. Like that's just
An
it's just
hour-long episode. The
another
next
hour
episode is
long
an
episode.
hour long.
It's crazy the way they set this up.
It's wild how good this episode is, and the ending's really, really hard to watch. Like
Yeah.
I do wish we'd seen Edie again. That's my
Yeah.
thing in the next couple of episodes. I hate that this is how we end with this character. We never
Right.
see Edie again. We never see the Ghorman again, or the Gore again. Fine, they all die except for Drina. But
Yeah. 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 That's it.
she makes it out, but we never see Edie again. And I do feel like that also makes the ending of this episode hit a lot harder, knowing this is the last we're going to see of this character. She's crying because her entire family is gone. And if we remember from the backstory that this is her thing, she clung on to Syril because Cyril's father left and never came back. And now Cyril's left and never came back.
Right.
This episode is really good. I did mention last week I have some thoughts on the Ghorman massacre specifically with regards to its role in inciting the rebellion, why it kind of needed to be humans and why it specifically needed to be these sort of high class humans, these
Right.
more affluent humans. I have a lot of thoughts on that, but this episode has gone on too long already. So I think this one needs to end, and I think I've moved that to my next section where I want to talk about why I think historically, within the context of real world human history, this is good commentary on what events spark revolutions or revolutionary movements or protest movements, and why the choice to make the Gorm the way they are works really well in context. But we can't have that conversation because we're too fucking long already. Bradley, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
My final thoughts are I love the Star Wars French Revolution. It was great. I'm glad I got to witness history, and it was such a good episode.
My final thought is shout out to Star Wars Les Mis. You ended about as well as actual Les Mis did.
I was gonna say, where's the musical numbers? Like I'm surprised we didn't get that.
We had one in this
Oh,
episode.
you're right.
They sing.
They did sing,
Do
actually.
you hear the people
So
sing, Bradley?
It genuinely is
Singing
Les
the
Mis.
song of angry men.
Okay.
It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again.
It's so funny. I was watching this episode and my sister walked in the room and she was just kind of like casually looking at it as she left. And then she came back after I was done and I was like writing my notes and she was like, "Were there French people in the show?" She's like, "It was giving French Revolution vibes." And I was like, the fact that you caught onto that without actively watching the show is crazy. That's how good
Now,
this
my
episode.
boyfriend will be the first to yap at me that the Les Mis was not the French Revolution. It was a different student uprising. Yada yada yada. I'm like, yeah, I know, honey.
Okay.
I'm aware. I'm aware. But yes, this was the music. This is technically a musical episode.
This is the first Star Wars musical
This is the
episode.
first Star Wars musical episode. Oh Lord, what are we talking about next week? What are we talking about next week, Bradley?
Next week we're talking about episode 9, Welcome to the Rebellion.
You remember the Mon Mothma minute? That's going to be the whole episode.
The whole episode. And this is why I said in the beginning of this arc, I said technically these first 2 episodes are the arc. And then the 3rd episode is this fallout that Mon Mothma has to deal with because of this arc. So I think they do flow together nicely. However, I'm still in the mindset that this is its own thing.
I think it would be more accurate to say this is a part 1 and a part 2, and the next episode is a new episode.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's like
because 7 just sort of felt like it abruptly ended.
Right.
8 has a really good ending.
It feels like a solid
Like
end. Yeah, that's why I thought it's very jarring when you watch them in together, because you watch the first 2 and you're like, wow, that was fucking crazy, a 2-parter, right? And then it's like, oh shit, I have a whole nother hour to watch of this fucking show. Like, this is, what else could they possibly do in this arc? But we'll see. It's you're gonna be your favorite, I'm sure.
It is my favorite piece of Star Wars media, period.
Okay.
Like,
I love
this
that.
is it. This
so
is
you're
the
telling
best
me
one.
that if this episode went long, the next episode.
Brace yourself for next week.
Great.
Fucking brace yourself.
I think I'm just gonna put myself
luck.
on mute next week and then just let you just go for it.
I will now talk for an extended period of time about Mon Mothma and her gay assistant.
There you go.
Well, I mean, he is half Ghor, so that also means he's bisexual. By the rules we have established on this podcast,
That's right.
all Ghor are bisexual and polyamorous.
Sure.
So, pluggable. You can find a bunch of reality TV that Bradley has worked on Peacock, Bravo, and Netflix, including such shows as Temptation Island, Married to Medicine, Queen's Court, and coming out soon, King's Court on July 13th on Bravo. You can find me on the Star Wars TTRPG podcast, Or Light and Dice, a TTRPG set in the High Republic era that I mentioned in this episode. You can also find Gay Books I Write. Those are on Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and you can request it in your library through Overdrive. You can go to my social media at CWRogers6 and find out more information there. I am also involved in Legacy Expo, a Star Wars Expanded Universe convention that is going to be in Burbank, California, September 13th through 14th. Go to legacyexpo.org for tickets and information. If you liked all the legend stuff I said in this episode, this convention is for you. Finally, temporarily until we get these socials re-recorded, you can find us on Patreon to help us support the show. And that is at patreon.com/Gold Squadron Gaze. $3 a month gets you extended versions and video versions of these episodes with more to come. I am very busy. Run the socials. Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com and let us know. You can follow us on BlueSky, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post full episodes of this podcast. If you like the podcast, you can also rate us and review us on your favorite podcast app of choice. Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze.
Oh, I thought you were in the closet. Like you made like a joke. Like you're like, I'm recording inside the closet.
I don't know.
I can't
Maybe
remember.
there's a long-term listener of the show that could tell us.
Somebody who remembers more
Somebody
than
who remembers
Yeah.
any time I was in the closet, which I was in for a stunningly long time.
Yeah, I don't remember anything before Ahsoka, so everything was blacked out in my
I'm
mind.
surprised you remember as far back as Ahsoka.
That's about as far back as I can remember in my life.